The chandeliers inside the Plaza Hotel glittered like 1,000 frozen stars, casting a gold glow over New York's most powerful elites. But none of that warmth reached Elena Brooks. She stood alone near the entrance, one hand resting protectively on her 5-month belly, the other trembling slightly as she clutched her invitation. She had come tonight hoping to support her husband, CFO Brandon Hale, the man who once swore she was his whole world. But the world shifted under her feet the moment she saw him. Brandon strode into the ballroom, not with her, but with another woman. Lydia Wynne, glamorous, dangerous, the kind of woman who looked like she'd never been denied anything in her life, hung on Brandon's arm like she already owned him. Cameras flashed instantly. Whispers rippled through the room. Some people gasped softly, recognizing Elena. Others didn't bother to hide their cruel curiosity. Brandon didn't flinch. He didn't search the crowd for his wife. He didn't even pretend to care. Instead, he placed his hand on Lydia's waist and kissed her cheek under the full blaze of the ballroom lights. Elena's breath lodged in her throat. The sting behind her eyes blurred the gold and crystal around her. She tried to step back, tried to breathe, tried to hold herself together, but the humiliation was suffocating. Dozens of guests turned to stare. That was when another presence appeared beside her, tall, composed, carrying the weight of old money and unshakable authority. Grant Wynne, Lydia's estranged billionaire father, looked down at Elena with an expression not of pity, but of cold, calculated fury. He had seen everything, and in that single moment, the balance of power in the room shifted not toward Brandon and his mistress, but toward the quiet, trembling woman he believed he had destroyed. Grant's voice dropped to a low, dangerous whisper. "Mrs. Hale, step outside with me. There is something you need to know." Elena froze because what he said next would change the entire course of her life. Elena Brooks had never belonged to the glittering world inside the Plaza Hotel. She had grown up in a small Ohio town where neighbors borrowed sugar from each other and doors were rarely locked. Life had been simple, predictable, warm, until a series of tragedies carved away every piece of her safety. Her mother's sudden passing, her father's disappearance from her life, the financial collapse of the architecture firm where she worked. By the time she met Brandon Hale at a corporate networking mixer, she was carrying far more scars than confidence. He seemed like light back then, polished, charismatic, ambitious, a rising star in Manhattan's finance world. He pulled out her chair, remembered her coffee order, walked her home in the rain. He made her believe stability still existed. She married him with a heart full of hope, but marriage slowly exposed the cracks. Brandon's warmth cooled into indifference. His gestures became calculated. His affection started arriving only when he needed something: her signature, her support, her silence. And Elena, eager to keep the peace, ignored the sinking feeling in her chest. When she found out she was pregnant, she thought it might change things. Brandon smiled, said all the right words, even kissed her belly. But the tenderness faded quickly, replaced by the kind of tension that made her wonder whether she'd misread everything. His late nights multiplied. His excuses grew thinner. His phone stayed face down. Still, she held on to hope until the gala shattered the last illusion she had. As she followed Grant Wynne out of the ballroom, her heart pounded beneath the soft fabric of her dress. She was shaking, not just from humiliation, but from the weight of everything she had tried to ignore. Grant led her to a quiet hallway overlooking Central Park, its winter lights shimmering like distant fireflies. "Elena," he said gently, "how long has Brandon been treating you this way?" She hesitated. No one had ever asked that question, not her friends, not Brandon's family, not even Brandon himself. I don't know when it started," she whispered. "I kept thinking he was stressed, or tired, or pressured by work. I didn't want to believe he'd stopped loving me." Grant studied her with a heavy, knowing look, the look of someone who had watched too many women break quietly. "You deserve to hear something," he said. "Something that concerns both you and my daughter." Elena's breath caught. Her fingers curled protectively around her belly. "What do you mean?" she asked. Grant exhaled slowly, as though weighing the consequences of his next words. "Because Brandon didn't just betray you, he betrayed the wrong family." The Plaza's grand ballroom wasn't just a venue, it was a declaration of power. Gold-leafed columns, velvet drapes, and a sweeping staircase that seemed built for royalty. Every year, Manhattan's elite gathered here for the Hale Capital Winter Benefit, a night where fortunes were displayed as casually as diamonds. It was a world Brandon adored, a world Elena had always felt like a visitor in. Tonight, the contrast was even sharper. While chandeliers bathed the room in warm light, Elena felt cold down to her bones. Behind the ballroom's French doors, the swell of strings from a live orchestra carried through the halls. Guests in tailored tuxedos and shimmering gowns held champagne flutes like props in a carefully staged performance. Conversations drifted between stock predictions, art auctions, and whispers about who had secured a penthouse on Fifth Avenue. It wasn't Elena's world, not anymore. Grant Wynne led her through a quiet back corridor lined with oil paintings imported from Europe, each frame lit by soft sconces that cast long shadows across the polished marble. A server passed by carrying a silver tray of crystal, but Grant lifted a hand, dismissing him without breaking stride. They stepped into a private lounge reserved for board members and founders, a room most people at the gala would never see. Dark mahogany walls rose high above them, broken only by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, where snow had just begun to fall. A crystal decanter of aged scotch glowed amber beneath the dim lights, next to a bowl of pale orchids. This room felt quieter, heavier, the space where real decisions were made, far away from the laughter outside. "Elena," Grant said, guiding her toward a leather armchair. "Sit. You look like the ground disappeared beneath you." "It did," she whispered. She stared down at her hands, noticing how small they looked against the chair's carved armrests. How out of place she felt in a place built for people who shaped cities with a signature. "This environment," Grant said, sweeping his hand toward the skyline, "is more fragile than it appears. These people pretend they hold the world together. In truth, most of them are one scandal away from losing everything." Elena swallowed hard. "Is that what this is? A scandal?" Grant's eyes hardened. "Not yet. But it will be." Brandon made sure of that. She looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Grant leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Because the woman he brought tonight isn't just my daughter. She's the reason Brandon's about to lose everything." Brandon Hale had always known how to fill a room. Even before he amassed influence at Hale Capital, he walked with the kind of arrogance only men convinced of their own invincibility possessed. Growing up the privileged son of a corporate dynasty, he learned early that charm could open doors and manipulation could keep them open. Success, to him, wasn't earned, it was owed. Elena used to admire that confidence. Now, she saw the danger inside it. Back in the ballroom, Brandon basked in a crowd that admired him for all the wrong reasons. His perfectly tailored tuxedo, his polished speech, his ability to boast about financial growth while hiding the rot beneath the surface. Tonight, he performed like a man who believed he had finally become untouchable. And Lydia Wynne, clinging to his arm like a prized accessory, fed that illusion. To the guests, their appearance was shocking, bold, even reckless. To Brandon, it was strategy. In his mind, Elena was already the past. Lydia represented opportunity, deeper connections, inherited wealth, a shortcut to circles he'd been chasing for years. What he didn't realize was that Lydia's family connections didn't protect him, they endangered him. Brandon scanned the ballroom, unaware Elena had slipped away. He raised a glass of champagne, laughing loudly at a joke someone made about upgrading. The people around him smirked politely, no one dared oppose him, but their eyes flicked nervously toward the private corridor where Grant Wynne had disappeared minutes earlier. Whispers began to stir. "Isn't that Hale's wife? Why is Wynne leading her out? Oh, this will get messy." But Brandon, wrapped in his own ego, didn't notice any of it. Meanwhile, Lydia leaned in, her lips brushing Brandon's ear. "We're trending on social media already," she whispered. "Everyone loves us. Dino Bost is." Brandon smirked. "Good. After tonight, Elena will have no choice but to step aside." But Lydia hesitated. "Are you sure she won't fight back? Women like her don't disappear quietly." Brandon chuckled. "Elena? She's harmless." He didn't see the shift in Lydia's expression, the flicker of doubt, the shadow of fear. For all her bravado, she knew her father better than anyone. Grant Wynne was a man who rarely showed anger, but when he did, destruction followed. And tonight, she had just publicly humiliated a pregnant woman, an unforgivable offense in Grant's book. Somewhere deep in the building, Grant was already speaking to Elena, and Brandon, raising another toast to himself, had no idea that every word he'd ever whispered every secret he thought he'd buried, was about to be exposed. Because Grant Wynn wasn't just furious, he was ready to ruin him. The moment Elena stepped back into the ballroom, the music felt louder, harsher, as if the violins themselves had sharpened into knives. Grant's revelation still echoed inside her chest, making her heart pound unevenly. Brandon hadn't just betrayed her, he had entangled himself in something far darker, something that could collapse everything she once called home. She tried to steady her breathing as she moved through the sea of glittering gowns and tuxedos, but whispers rippled around her like poison. That's her. The wife? Oh God, she looks pale. Did she know he was bringing Lydia? Then someone's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Should have dressed better if she wanted to keep her man. Elena froze. Heat rushed to her face, a mix of humiliation and anger. She bit the inside of her cheek to stop the tears, but the sting behind her eyes grew sharper, heavier. Across the room, Brandon spotted her. For a brief moment, shock flickered in his expression, as if he genuinely hadn't expected her to see him with Lydia. But that flicker vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, dismissive smirk. He whispered something to Lydia, who let out a cruel little laugh before slipping her hand into his. Together, they approached Elena. Every step, a performance. Elena, Brandon said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, you really shouldn't be here. This is a professional event. You're emotional tonight. The word landed like a slap. Lydia added lightly, maybe she's overwhelmed. Pregnancy hormones can do that. A few people chuckled. Elena's vision blurred. She pressed a hand to her belly, as if shielding her child from the cruelty around her. Brandon leaned in, voice low enough for only Elena to hear. Don't make this scene about you. You're embarrassing yourself. End quote. Something inside her cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a small bone giving way under too much weight. She opened her mouth to speak, but her throat tightened. No sound came out. Then a new voice answered for her. I believe, Grant Wynn said from behind them. The only embarrassment here is the man standing in front of me. Brandon stiffened. Lydia went pale. Every head nearby turned toward the billionaire, whose presence alone could reorder social hierarchies. Grant stepped beside Elena, his stance protective, authoritative, and unmistakably hostile toward Brandon. He looked Brandon dead in the eyes. Before this night ends, Grant said evenly, you'll regret every word you just said to your wife. Elena didn't remember leaving the ballroom. One moment, she was standing beside Grant as he confronted Brandon, and the next, she was drifting through the marble corridor like a shadow. Her legs felt heavy, her chest tight, every breath trembling on its way out. The noise of the gala faded into a dull, distant hum laughter, champagne glasses, soft orchestra strings, all muffled as though she were underwater. Her vision blurred again. A pressure built behind her ribs, sharp and overwhelming. She braced a hand against the wall. Not here. Please, not here, she thought. But her body was done, pretending she was fine. Images flashed through her mind, Brandon laughing with Lydia, the whispers, the humiliation, the cold dismissal in his eyes. She had spent years bending herself into shapes that fit around his ambitions. She did everything right, everything a wife was supposed to do. And still, she wasn't enough. A wave of dizziness washed over her. She pressed a hand to her belly. Baby, stay with me, she whispered. A tremor ran through her, her breathing growing shallow. Then the marble floor tilted. Elena! A voice called behind her, Grant's voice, sharp with alarm. She tried to answer, but the hallway spun violently. Her knees buckled. Grant caught her just before she collapsed completely, his arms steady, his expression transformed from composed billionaire to a man genuinely afraid. You're burning up, he said, touching her forehead. You shouldn't be walking around in your condition. Elena shook her head weakly. I'm fine. I just need a minute. No, Grant said firmly. You need a doctor. Tears welled in her eyes, hot, humiliating tears she couldn't stop. I didn't want any of this, she whispered. I just wanted my family. I just wanted him to love us. Grant's expression tightened, a rare crack in his controlled demeanor. Elena, that man doesn't know how to love anything he can't control, he said quietly. But you're stronger than you realize. But she didn't feel strong. She felt broken, exposed, and unbearably alone. Grant helped her sit on a velvet bench in the hallway, his hand steady on her shoulder. The world around her blurred chandelier lights bending into streaks of gold as she struggled to breathe normally. "Elena, look at me," he said. "I'm calling my driver. We're going to the hospital." She opened her mouth to protest, but another wave of dizziness hit so brutally that her vision went completely white. "Elena!" Grant shouted, shaking her gently. Her world narrowed to a faint ringing sound. And then, everything went dark. The antiseptic scent of the hospital slowly filtered into Elena's senses as consciousness returned. Soft beeping echoed somewhere near her ear. For a moment, she didn't know where she was, until she felt the gentle weight of a warm blanket and the faint ache in her chest. Her eyes fluttered open. Dim lights, a private room, snow falling quietly outside the window. And beside her sat Grant Wynne, not polished and impenetrable as he had been at the gala, but leaning forward, elbows on his knees, worry etched deep into his usually stoic expression. His expensive coat was draped over the chair, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up as if he'd been there for hours. When he heard her shift, he stood instantly. "Elena, thank God," he said. "You scared the hell out of me." She swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. Is the baby okay?" Grant nodded. "Yes, your vitals stabilized. The doctor said you fainted from extreme stress and dehydration. You need rest, and you need to stay away from Brandon." At the sound of the name, her chest tightened. "I don't know how to do that," she confessed. "Everything in my life is tied to him." Grant's jaw flexed, the first sign of controlled anger. "No," he said softly but firmly. "Everything in your life was taken by him. There's a difference." She looked down at her hands, trying to steady her breathing. "Why are you helping me?" she finally asked. Grant hesitated. Then he sat down, voice low, almost hesitant, a tone she'd never imagined from a billionaire feared across Manhattan. "Because this isn't the first time Brandon has crossed a line," he began. "He's been using Lydia to gain access to circles he thinks will elevate him. But he doesn't understand my daughter. Or me." Elena blinked, confused. "I don't understand." End quote. Grant exhaled sharply, glancing toward the window before meeting her eyes. 10 years ago," he said, "I met a young architecture intern. She was thoughtful, honest, brilliant, someone who stood up to a room full of executives because the design compromised safety. I never forgot her." Elena stared, unsure where the story was going. "That intern," Grant continued, "was you." Her breath hitched. "Me? You saved a worker's life with that decision," he said. "And I see that same courage in you now." A heaviness filled the room, intimate, unexpected, protective. "Elena," Grant said, leaning closer, "there's something else you need to know. Something Brandon has been hiding. Something that involves your name, your finances, and your future." Her pulse quickened. "What did he do?" Grant's eyes darkened. "He opened a secret account using your identity and funneled stolen company funds into it. If you think..." For the next few days, Elena stayed under medical supervision. Grant visited often, never overstepping, never demanding conversation. He simply brought warm meals, updates from the doctor, and an unwavering presence she didn't know she needed. For the first time since her marriage began to crumble, someone stood beside her without expecting anything in return. And slowly, the fog in her mind began to lift. On the third morning, when sunlight filtered through the blinds, Elena pushed herself upright. Her reflection in the hospital mirror startled her pale skin, tired eyes, hair tangled from days of stress. But beneath the exhaustion, there was something new. Clarity. She tied her hair back, letting her fingers linger on her cheek. She wasn't powerless, she wasn't broken. Brandon had taken almost everything from her: security, confidence, peace, but he hadn't taken her will to fight. When Grant walked in later that morning, carrying a warm drink, he paused mid-step. "You look different," he said softly. "I feel different." Elena exhaled. "I can't let him control the rest of my life. I need to take everything back piece by piece." A slow, approving nod formed on Grant's face. "Good, because you'll need strength for what comes next." He set a folder on her bedside table. Inside were documents, bank statements, emails, forged signatures, all proof of Brandon's secret account under her name. Elena's breath caught. "He really used me for this?" Grant's voice hardened. "He thought hiding the funds under your identity would protect him. But it actually gives you the leverage. With this evidence, you can clear your name, protect your child, and dismantle everything he built on lies." Her hands trembled not from fear, but from awakening power. For months, she'd been drowning in confusion. Now, she finally saw the surface. "Grant," she whispered, "why are you helping me like this?" His gaze softened, not with pity, but respect. "Because you're the only person in this entire situation who has done nothing wrong. And because you're stronger than even you realize." His words settled into her chest like an anchor, grounding her for the first time in months. That evening, Elena was discharged. Grant sent his driver with a black Mercedes to take her not back to her old apartment, not to a friend's sofa, but to a quiet, elegant suite at the Park Hyatt he had arranged for her recovery. A place where she could regain her strength and herself. As Elena stepped inside the suite, she inhaled deeply. This wasn't a hiding place. It was the beginning of her rebuilding. She placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "We're going to be okay." As Meinine. But just as she sat down to breathe, her phone buzzed. A message from Brandon. "We need to talk. Come home, now." Brandon's message glowed on Elena's screen like a threat. "We need to talk. Come home, now." For a few seconds, she simply stared at it, feeling the familiar pressure building in her chest. The old Elena, the one who spent years apologizing, bending, shrinking to fit Brandon's world, would have rushed back instantly, terrified of what he might do if she didn't obey. But the woman standing in the Park Hyatt suite wasn't the same anymore. She powered off her phone. Grant arrived shortly after, with a security file in hand, as if sensing her unraveling nerves. "You look unsettled," he said. "Brandon messaged me," she admitted. "He wants me to go home." Grant's expression darkened. "That's not a home anymore, it's leverage. He knows he's losing control." Her stomach twisted. "What does he want from me now?" "Desperation makes men like him reckless," Grant said, sitting across from her. And cornered, he opened the security file and laid out photos, blurry but damning, of Brandon entering luxury hotels with Lydia, signing unauthorized documents, meeting with questionable clients. Evidence of a double life more elaborate than Elena ever imagined. Elena swallowed hard. "How long has he?" "Long enough that this wasn't a mistake," Grant said. "It was a plan. When we know." Pain tugged at her ribs, not heartbreak this time, but betrayal evolving into something sharper. "Resolve. He stole my identity," she whispered. "He risked our baby. He humiliated me. And now he thinks he can summon me back?" Grant's eyes softened with something close to admiration. "You finally see him clearly." She nodded. "I do." "Good," Grant said, leaning forward. "Because you're going to need that clarity tomorrow. There's a board event at Hale Capital. Investors will be present. Brandon will try to present his quarterly projections." Elena frowned. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Grant answered. "Because he used your forged signature to hide stolen funds. If you show up with the evidence we have, the entire financial floor will collapse under him." Her breath caught. "You want me to confront him publicly?" "I want you to take back your dignity," Grant corrected. "I'll be there. You won't stand alone. If you confession." For a moment, Elena saw her reflection in the suite's glass window, not fragile, not broken, but a woman standing on the edge of reclaiming her life. A woman rising. Her phone buzzed again. Even turned off, Brandon's desperation reached her through email notifications on her laptop. This time, the message was shorter, more aggressive. "If you don't come home tonight, I'll come find you." Elena's heart skipped. Grant stepped closer, reading the fear on her face. "Elena," he said steadily, "you're safe. Because tomorrow, he's the one who should be afraid." The next morning, Manhattan woke beneath a blanket of pale winter sun. But inside Hale Capital's headquarters on Park Avenue, the air crackled with tension. Investors, senior partners, and board members filled the sleek glass conference hall, murmuring over quarterly reports and stock projections. Today's meeting was supposed to be Brandon Hale's triumphant moment, the day he showcased record growth and secured a new wave of funding. But Brandon had no idea the ground beneath him was about to collapse. Elena arrived through the private entrance, Grant arranged, wearing a simple navy dress that fit her growing belly and a new steadiness in her posture. No makeup, no jewelry, just quiet strength. The receptionist, who once treated her like an accessory of Brandon's success, froze at the sight of her. "Elena, Mrs. Hale, I didn't know you were." "I'm here for the board session," Elena said calmly. Whispers followed her down the hall. Why is she here? Didn't Brandon bring his mistress to the gala last night? Something's going on. Inside the glass-walled conference room, Brandon stood at the front, adjusting his Mont Blanc pen and rehearsing his charm. Lydia sat in the back row, sunglasses on despite being indoors, pretending not to be terrified of her father's silence. Then the room hushed. Elena stepped inside. Brandon froze mid-sentence, color draining from his face. Elena? You shouldn't be here. Her gaze didn't waver. I have every right to be here, especially today. Grant entered right behind her, and the room instantly straightened the presence of a billionaire rearranging the power dynamics in seconds. He took a seat beside Elena without acknowledging his daughter. Brandon stammered, Grant, I didn't expect. You rarely expect consequences for your actions, Grant said, voice sharp enough to slice through glass. The board members leaned forward. Elena reached into her folder and pulled out the documents, the forged signatures, the stolen funds, the hidden account under her identity. She placed them on the conference table, her hands steady. These are records, she said, her voice clear, of Brandon's transactions using my name without consent. A ripple of shock tore through the room. Brandon's mask shattered. Elena, you don't understand. No, she said softly. You don't understand. You didn't just betray me. You incriminated me. You put our baby at risk. Grant rose slowly, placing a heavy hand on Brandon's shoulder, a gesture that felt almost like a warning from fate itself. Mr. Hale, Grant said, I believe the board would like to know how you plan to explain felony-level embezzlement. Brandon's eyes darted wildly, panic finally breaking through his arrogance. And then, the conference room doors swung open. A team of federal investigators walked in. Brandon Hale, the lead agent, announced, We have a warrant for your arrest. The moment Brandon was led out of the glass conference room in handcuffs, chaos exploded inside Hale Capital. Investors whispered frantically, board members scrambled through documents, and Lydia sat motionless in the corner, her face drained of color. The empire Brandon had spent years polishing had crumbled in less than 10 minutes. And Elena stood in the center of it all, steady, composed, and no longer living in his shadow. Grant gently touched her elbow. You did well, he murmured. You stood your ground. She exhaled shakily. I didn't think I'd ever be strong enough. You were never weak, he replied. You were silenced. Outside the conference hall, journalists surged forward, cameras flashing like lightning. Security formed a protective wall around Elena as Grant guided her through the lobby. She felt the weight of hundreds of eyes watching her, but for the first time, it didn't crush her. It didn't drown her. It only pushed her forward. When they stepped into the cold air of Park Avenue, Grant's driver pulled up in a sleek Mercedes. Elena sank into the back seat, exhaustion washing over her. The city lights blurred through the window, not from tears this time, but from sheer physical fatigue. Where will you go now? Grant asked gently. She hesitated. I don't know. I can't go back to that apartment, and I can't keep living in fear of what comes next. Grant nodded slowly. You won't. Starting today, your life moves forward, not backward. He handed her another envelope. Inside were papers assigning her temporary protection, legal representation, and she gasped softly, a contract offer. This is, she breathed, reading the first page. A design lead position? A project of mine, Grant confirmed. I've been looking for someone with your vision. After reviewing your past work, the answer became obvious. Elena blinked in disbelief. But why me? Because you're talented, he said simply, and because you deserve a chance to rebuild your life on your own terms. A warmth spread through her chest, gratitude, hope, relief, all tangled together. But the moment was short-lived. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She considered ignoring it, but something about the preview line made her blood run cold. You think this is over? She opened the message. A single photo appeared, Brandon, inside the federal transport van, staring directly into the camera with a twisted, furious half-smile. Beneath it, a text. I'm not done with you, Elena. Elena's fingers trembled as she stared at the threat on her screen. The hospital discharge papers were still tucked in her bag, her body still fragile from the collapse. Yet Brandon's message sliced through her fragile calm like a knife. Even behind federal custody, he was still trying to reach her, still trying to control her. Grant noticed the shift in her breathing. "Elena?" he said quietly. "What happened?" She handed him the phone. His jaw tightened instantly. He's already manipulating the system. Someone inside must be feeding him access. Elena's stomach twisted. Can he get out? Not legally, Grant replied. But men like Brandon don't rely on legality. They rely on fear. Fear. Something she had lived with for years, without naming it. Grant placed a grounding hand over hers. You're under private protection now. He can't touch you. But the truth was more complicated. It wasn't Brandon's physical presence she feared, it was the version of herself she used to become around him. Small, quiet, apologetic, invisible. She wasn't that woman anymore. That night, after returning to the Park Hyatt suite, she sat on the edge of the bed, her hand resting on her belly. Her child moved softly beneath her palm, a reminder that her choices mattered now more than ever. I won't let him scare us, she whispered. Still, unease clung to her like a shadow. Around 2 a.m., a soft knock sounded at her door. She froze. Security was stationed outside her suite. No one should have been able to get through. Her heart pounded as she approached, her breath catching when she heard a familiar voice through the door. Elena, it's me. Please, open up. Grant. Relief washed through her. She opened the door quickly, only to find him standing there with a troubled expression she had never seen before. What's wrong? She asked. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I received a call from the lead investigator on Brandon's case. Her pulse quickened. What did they say? Grant hesitated, and the hesitation alone told her everything. Elena. Brandon made bail. She staggered back. How? He was charged with federal crimes. Indo stuff. Someone with influence posted it, Grant said. Someone wealthy. Someone with motives we don't yet understand. Elena felt the room tilt. But who would? Grant swallowed hard. That's the problem, he said. The name on the bail paperwork was blocked. Her voice barely formed the question. So he could be anywhere now? Grant nodded slowly. Elena, he's already disappeared from federal custody. The world seemed to stop. And then, a sharp knock hit the suite door. Not gentle, not hesitant, violent. The pounding on the door echoed through the suite like a warning shot. Elena's heart lurched. Grant instinctively stepped in front of her, protective and composed despite the storm building on his face. Stay behind me, he said quietly. Another violent knock rattled the door. Open up, a voice shouted from the hallway. Elena's blood froze. It wasn't Brandon's voice, but it held the same rage. Grant signaled her to stay back, then approached the door with caution. Before he could touch the handle, the hotel's head of security suddenly turned the corner, sprinting toward them. Mr. Wynn, step aside, the guard ordered. The door burst open just as the guard reached them, but instead of Brandon, a disheveled Lydia Wynn stumbled inside, mascara smeared and eyes wild with panic. Dad, she gasped, breathless, you have to listen to me. Grant's face hardened. Lydia, what the hell are you doing here? She looked nothing like the poised woman from the gala. Her dress was wrinkled, her hair frayed, and fear clung to her like a second skin. It's Brandon, she choked out. He found me. Elena felt her knees go weak. Grant grabbed his daughter's shoulders. Where? At your townhouse, Lydia whispered. He was waiting for me inside. He said someone ruined his life and I was going to help him fix it. Grant's jaw tightened dangerously. Did he hurt you? No, she said, wiping tears, but he's not the same. He kept saying you sabotaged him. He kept talking about Elena like she belonged to him. Elena's stomach twisted. The guard stepped forward. Mr. Wynn, we searched the hall. No sign of him now. We'll secure the entire floor. But Lydia shook her head violently. No, you don't understand. He left your townhouse because he said he had unfinished business. He kept repeating her name. She looked straight at Elena. He's coming here. Elena's heartbeat drummed painfully against her ribs. Grant moved closer, his presence steadying her. He won't get near her, he said through clenched teeth. Not while I'm alive. But Lydia hesitated, guilt flickering over her features. There's something else, she whispered. Something I should have told you months ago. Grant glared. What now? Lydia swallowed hard. Brandon accessed your private investor list through my account. He knows every address, every property, every person connected to you, including Elena's new project contract. A chill spread through the room. Elena felt the weight of her baby shift beneath her palm, a silent reminder of what she couldn't lose. Grant's voice dropped, quiet and lethal. "We're leaving, now." But as he turned toward the door, the hotel lights flickered. A power surge. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Then, from somewhere inside the building, a single, unmistakable voice echoed her name. Elena. The power outage threw the entire floor into suffocating darkness. Emergency lights flickered to life a moment later, casting the hallway in pulsing red that made everything look more dangerous, more unreal. Elena's heartbeat thundered in her ears as shadows stretched across the walls like reaching hands. Grant instantly stepped in front of her, his posture rigid, protective. "Stay close," he ordered, voice low but steady. Lydia clung to the wall, trembling. "Dad, he followed me. He must have hacked the security system. He said he had nothing left to lose." Grant's jaw tightened, which makes him unpredictable. The hotel's head of security spoke into his earpiece. "Lock down the elevators. Find him, now." But a chilling laugh echoed from somewhere deeper on the floor. A laugh Elena knew far too well. "Brandon." "Elena," he called again, sing-song, unhinged. Come out, you owe me a conversation." Elena's breath caught. Grant reached back, squeezing her hand firmly. "He will not touch you," he said, each word sharp as steel. Security ushered them toward the emergency stairwell, but when they pushed the door open, a gust of cold air rushed past them. The stairwell windows shattered. The wind howled through the broken panes. "He's been here," the guard muttered. Elena's legs wobbled beneath her. She pressed a hand to her belly, fear gripping her throat. "Please, I can't run. Not fast." Grant moved closer, placing a steadying arm around her. "You won't run. I'll carry you if I have to." But before they could move, Lydia's phone buzzed violently. She glanced down and her face drained. "It's a video," she whispered. Grant snatched it from her hand. On the screen, Brandon appeared in the hotel's security control room, grinning wildly, the lights flickering behind him as he toyed with the system controls. "I see everything," he said, staring directly into the camera. "Every hallway, every door, every exit. You can't hide Elena. You can't hide her from me." Elena's stomach twisted. He'd planned this. He'd planned all of this. Grant handed the phone back with a controlled, lethal calm. "We're leaving through the staff corridors. He won't know those routes." Security formed a wall around them as they hurried down a dim service hallway lit by buzzing fluorescent lights. Elena's breath came in sharp, painful gasps. Her baby kicked anxiously beneath her ribs. Halfway down the corridor, another emergency light flickered, then went out. Darkness swallowed them again. A heavy door at the end of the hall creaked open. Brandon's silhouette filled the frame. His voice was low, poisoned with obsession. "Hello, Elena?" Unquote. "Did you really think you could destroy me and walk away alive?" Brandon stepped into the corridor, illuminated only by the faint red emergency glow behind him. His once polished suit hung crooked, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot with delusion. This wasn't the man Elena married. This was a man unraveling. Grant immediately positioned himself between Brandon and Elena, his voice sharp and icy. "Take one more step toward her, and I swear." Brandon laughed, a fractured, bitter sound. "You think you can protect her? You think money makes you powerful? I had everything under control until you stepped in. You destroyed yourself," Grant snapped. "You used her name. You stole her identity. You put her life and your child at risk." Brandon's gaze shifted to Elena, and something twisted in his expression. "That child is mine," he hissed. "She doesn't get to walk away with my legacy." "Wait, Brufrest." Elena's breath caught. Fear clamped her chest, but beneath it, a spark of anger flared bright. "You lost the right to call it a legacy the moment you tried to destroy me," she whispered, voice trembling but fierce. Brandon lunged. Security moved at the same moment, but Brandon's rage fueled him. He shoved one guard aside, slammed another into the wall, and reached for Elena, fingers brushing her arm. Grant grabbed Brandon and slammed him backward, sending him crashing into a steel cart. "Touch her again, and you'll regret breathing," Grant growled. But Brandon was beyond reason. "She ruined my life," he screamed, lunging again. Suddenly, Lydia stepped forward, the first time she'd moved without fear since arriving. "No, Brandon," she said, voice breaking. "You ruined ours." Her words stopped him momentarily. "You?" he sneered. You were just a stepping stone. A connection, nothing more. Lydia recoiled as though slapped. Grant's fury deepened, but security had gained the upper hand. 2 guards pinned Brandon against the wall, struggling but weakening. "Get off me," he roared. "You don't know what she's capable of." "Elena lies, she always lies." But his voice cracked, exposing panic beneath the rage. Elena stepped forward, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping the wall for balance. "You hurt me," she said quietly. "You almost killed our child. And you still blame everyone else." "But have a now." Brandon's eyes widened, wild and cornered. "You think this ends with me?" he rasped. "There are things you don't know, things that will destroy you long after I'm gone. You have no idea what's coming." Grant stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Brandon smirked, broken, triumphant. "There's someone else involved," he whispered. "Someone bigger than you, Grant. Bigger than all of us." Elena's blood ran cold. Grant stepped closer. "Who?" Brandon leaned his head back against the wall and laughed. "Ask her father." For a moment, the entire corridor fell silent. Even the flickering emergency lights seemed to pause, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Elena stared at Brandon, her heart pounding painfully against her ribs. "My father?" she whispered. "Brandon, my father is dead." Brandon laughed, a hollow, hysterical sound. "Oh, Elena, you sweet, naive girl. The man who raised you is dead. But your real father? The one you were never supposed to know?" He leaned forward, despite the guards pinning him down. "He's alive, and he's been watching you." Her legs nearly gave out. She gripped the wall to steady herself. Grant stepped between them. "Enough games. Elena's father abandoned her. We have the records. He disappeared decades ago." Brandon's grin twisted into something feral. He didn't disappear. He changed his name, reinvented himself, became someone powerful, someone feared. His eyes narrowed at Grant. "Someone who built an empire big enough to destroy yours." Grant's expression hardened, but a shadow flickered behind his eyes. Doubt. "Who?" he demanded. "Give a name." But Brandon only smirked. "You'll figure it out soon enough. He already knows you're involved, and he doesn't like anyone meddling with his bloodline." The words slammed into Elena's chest like a physical blow. Bloodline. Her father, the ghost she had stopped searching for, might not just be alive, but dangerous, connected to Brandon's crimes, a threat to her and her child. No, that doesn't make sense," she whispered, shaking her head. "My mother would have told me if—" "Your mother died protecting you," Brandon interrupted. "Protecting you from the man who—" Grant shoved him back against the wall. "Say another word and I'll—" "Dad!" Lydia cried, grabbing his arm. Elena felt her throat tighten. Her mother, who had worked 2 jobs, who had sacrificed everything, protecting her from whom? What past had she never been told? "Brandon," she said, voice trembling, "if you know something about my family—" "Oh, I know a lot," he snarled. "More than you ever wanted. And trust me, your father won't let you walk away from the mess you've created today." Grant turned sharply. "We're done here. Take him away." He cast for us. But as the guards began dragging Brandon down the hall, he screamed back at Elena. "You think Grant can save you? You think anyone can? You're in deeper than you know, Elena. This isn't over. It hasn't even started." His voice echoed long after he disappeared around the corner. Elena stood trembling in the half-lit hallway. Her world, already fractured, now felt like it had cracked open entirely. If her father was alive, if he was powerful, if he was involved, what would he do when he learned she was carrying a child? Grant approached, gently gripping her shoulders. "Elena, we'll figure this out. You're not alone." But before she could respond, a sharp vibration buzzed in her pocket. A message. Unknown number. With shaking hands, she opened it. A single line appeared. "Hello, Elena. We need to talk." As it. Elena stared at the message, glowing on her phone screen, her pulse hammering in her throat. "Hello, Elena. We need to talk." Grant leaned closer, reading the text over her shoulder. His eyes narrowed. "Do you recognize the number?" Elena shook her head. "No, but—" "Something about the tone feels calculated," Grant finished. "Not threatening, but authoritative." Elena nodded weakly. "Like someone who already knows they'll get what they want." Grant exhaled slowly. "We need to get you somewhere safe." Tonight, security escorted them down the emergency corridor, leaving the chaos of Brandon's arrest and ramblings behind. But Brandon's words kept replaying in her mind. Your real father, someone powerful, someone feared. Growing up, all Elena knew was a gentle, exhausted man who worked double shifts at a hardware store before disappearing from her life without explanation. Her mother never spoke of him again. And now this? They reached the garage where Grant's armored SUV waited. As the doors shut and the engine hummed to life, Elena's breath fogged the window. Snowflakes drifted past the glass like slow, weightless ghosts. Grant, she whispered, what if it's true? What if my father is alive? What if he's dangerous? Grant turned to face her. His voice softened in a way that surprised even him. Elena, blood doesn't define who you are, or who you become. Whatever he is, whatever he's done, doesn't change your worth. His words steadied her, but only slightly, because deep in her chest, fear churned. Fear for herself. Fear for her unborn child. As the SUV pulled into the underground entrance of a secure building, one of Grant's lesser-known private residences, security swept the area. Once inside, Elena sank onto the soft leather sofa, exhausted. Lydia stood a few feet away, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Elena, she said quietly, I didn't know any of this. Brandon never mentioned your father. Elena's voice cracked. Because he wasn't supposed to know, no one was. Grant studied her carefully. Your mother, did she ever hint at anything? Anything unusual? Elena shook her head. Nothing. She only said he left, that he didn't want a family. Grant exchanged a look with his head of security, one Elena didn't miss. What? She demanded. What aren't you saying? Before Grant could answer, her phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, it wasn't text. It was a live video. A trembling breath escaped Elena as she pressed play. A man's silhouette appeared tall, sharp-shouldered, standing beside a window overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Hello, Elena, the distorted voice repeated. It's time you learned the truth about your bloodline. Elena's hand clamped over her mouth. Grant leaned forward, eyes blazing, because in the next second, the man stepped into the light, revealing a face Grant recognized instantly. The man on the screen stepped out of the shadows, revealing a sharp jawline, silver hair combed neatly back, and eyes so cold they seemed carved from winter itself. Elena gasped as the camera focused, bringing every detail into haunting clarity. Grant's face drained of color. That's impossible, he murmured. He vanished decades ago. Elena's voice barely formed. You know him? Grant swallowed hard. Everyone in old money circles knew him. Victor Armand, a financial strategist, ruthless, brilliant, dangerous. He built an empire and destroyed anyone in his way. Then one day, he disappeared without a trace. The man Victor smirked slightly on the video. I see you've recognized me, Grant. Elena's breath caught. He's talking to you. Victor continued, voice smooth as glass. I didn't expect you to interfere in my daughter's affairs. But I respect boldness, always have. Elena felt her knees weaken. Lydia reached out instinctively, steadying her. Your daughter? Elena whispered. No, that can't be true. Victor's voice sharpened. Elena, you were never supposed to grow up under another man's name, but your mother chose to run from me, from the life I intended for you. I allowed it, until now. Grant clenched his jaw. What do you want with her, Victor? Victor tilted his head, almost amused. To meet her. To see the woman my blood created. To offer her protection. And to correct a few problems she's entangled herself in. Elena shook her head, tears blurring her vision. I don't know you. You left us. You left me. Why now? Because, Victor said, leaning closer to the camera, your husband's crimes trace back to networks he should never have touched. Networks connected to my previous life. The investigators are digging. The feds are asking questions. And your name, my bloodline, is in the middle of it. Elena felt the room close in around her. Grant stepped forward, eyes burning. She wants nothing from you. Stay away from her. Victor's smile vanished. You don't get to dictate anything here, Win. You've inserted yourself where you don't belong, and now you're endangering her. Grant didn't flinch. I'll protect her. Victor's voice dropped to a threat. You can't protect what's already been claimed. End quote. And deface. Electric panic shot through Elena. What does that mean? What are you planning? Victor held up a piece of paper to the camera, an official-looking document. Your guardianship, signed by your mother before she died. She left custody rights to me if anything ever happened to her. Elena staggered backward. No, no, that's impossible. Victor's final words chilled her to the bone. I'm coming to get you, Elena. And the child. The screen went black. Elena's scream caught in her throat as the building's alarm suddenly blared, signaling an unauthorized breach at the main entrance. Alarms shrieked through the private residence, sharp and metallic, vibrating against the marble floors. The lights switched to emergency mode, casting everything in a deep, pulsing red. Elena froze, her hand instinctively covering her belly as adrenaline surged through her body. Grant reacted instantly. Security to the main entrance. Lock down every exit. Nobody gets in or out. Lydia backed into the wall, trembling. Is it him? Is it Victor? We don't know yet, Grant said, though the tension in his voice betrayed the truth. He feared the same thing. 2 guards rushed into the room, breathless. Sir, someone bypassed the external gate. They're heading toward the lobby now. Grant turned to Elena, his expression softening for only a fraction of a second. We're getting you out of here. Now. We thank you for wash. No, Elena whispered, surprising even herself. I'm done running. Grant stared at her, stunned. She stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. My entire life, I've been afraid. First of losing my mother, then of Brandon's anger, then of the secrets I never asked for. But not anymore. Elena, no. She held up a hand. I won't let another man, father or ex-husband, dictate where I go or who I am. Body. Strength flickered in her eyes, something fierce and new. The corridor's red glow reflected off her determined expression, making her look almost reborn. Grant felt something shift inside him, a deep, protective admiration. But the alarms grew louder. A guard's voice crackled through the intercom. Unknown male approaching the elevator bank. Repeat. Unknown male approaching. Static swallowed the rest. Grant cursed under his breath. We have seconds. Elena, please. She turned to him, voice suddenly fragile beneath the bravery. I'm afraid, but I'm more afraid of what happens if I keep hiding. I need to face him, Grant. I need answers. He looked at her, really looked and understood. You won't face him alone, he vowed. The elevator dinged. They spun toward the sound as the doors slid open. A tall, broad man stepped out, but it wasn't Victor. It was a federal agent, badge raised. Mr. Wynn, Miss Brooks, we need to evacuate you. Now. Grant exhaled in relief, but the agent wasn't finished. There's been a development, he said. Victor Armand is on the move, but he's not coming here. Elena blinked. Then where? The agent met her eyes, expression grim. He's going after someone else first. Grant stiffened. Who? The agent swallowed. Your ex-husband, Brandon Hale. Elena's breath caught. Victor wasn't trying to take her. He was hunting the man who endangered his bloodline. And somewhere deep inside her, relief twisted with dread, because Victor's justice would not be gentle. Then the agent added, and he wants you to see it. The federal SUV tore down the snowy Manhattan streets, red and blue lights slicing through the night. Elena sat in the back seat beside Grant, her hands trembling despite his steadying presence. Ahead of them, the agent spoke urgently into his radio. Elena, Grant said gently, you don't have to watch this. Yes, she whispered. I do. They turned onto a deserted industrial road near the waterfront. Warehouses loomed like silent giants, their windows dark. The SUV slowed. Victor's inside, the agent said. Brandon was brought here 20 minutes ago. Elena's pulse hammered. As they stepped out, cold wind whipped through her hair. The agents pushed open the warehouse doors, revealing a vast, dimly lit space. And in the center, Victor Armand. Tall, unshaken, a man carved from stone and power. Brandon knelt before him, wrists zip-tied, face bruised from resisting arrest. He looked nothing like the arrogant man who had strutted through the Plaza Hotel. Victor didn't look at Elena at first. His eyes remained locked on Brandon. You stole from my networks. You endangered my bloodline, and you threatened what's mine. Brandon spat blood. She was nothing, just a weak. Victor's hand cracked across his face, silencing him. She is my daughter, Victor said coldly, and the child she carries is my legacy. You touched both. That sealed your fate. Elena flinched, not out of sympathy, but from the brutal truth. She had never been powerless. She had simply never known the force standing behind her. But then Victor finally turned toward her, his expression shifting. "Elena," he said, voice softer. "I never meant for you to learn about me this way. Your mother wanted a quiet life. I granted her that, but now you deserve protection. A future." Grant stepped forward, protective. "She already has that." Victor studied him for a long moment, two titans measuring each other. Then Elena spoke, voice trembling but firm. "I don't want revenge. I don't want your empire. I want peace for my child, and I want Brandon out of our lives forever." Victor nodded once. "Then justice will be legal, not lethal." He signaled the federal agents. "Take him," Brandon screamed as they dragged him away. "Elena, you'll regret this. You need me. You." His voice faded into the night. Silence settled. Victor turned to her once more. "If you ever need me," she shook her head gently, "I need one thing. A chance to build my own life." A long pause. Then something unexpected. Victor smiled. A Brooks woman indeed. His Evan 12th. He walked away, disappearing into the snowy dark. Grant stepped beside her. "Elena, it's over." Finally, her tears fell not from sorrow, but release. Months later, Elena stood in a sunlit garden overlooking Manhattan, her newborn daughter in her arms. Grant approached, breath catching at the sight. "Elena," he said softly, "I'd like to build a life with you, if you'll let me." Her heart opened steady, healed, reborn. "Yes," she whispered, and the city glowed around them, as if blessing her new beginning. So that's how the story closes. And if you're still here with me right now, my friend, it tells me something reached your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. And that matters, because stories like Elena's remind us of something we often forget. We are stronger than the storms we survive. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Elena reclaimed that power, step by step, breath by breath. And you can too. Maybe you're healing from betrayal. Maybe you've outgrown people who tried to shrink you. Maybe you're learning to trust yourself again. Whatever your path looks like, remember this. Your worth isn't defined by who walks away, but by who you become after they're gone. And just like Elena, you're allowed to rebuild, to rise, and to choose peace over chaos. If this story touched you, even in the smallest way, do me a favor, like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe. We're building a family here, one story at a time, and I'd love for you to stay.